Right then. Okay, let's get things started. Firstly, everyone, thank you very much for joining us today, and welcome to the Content Formula and Live Tiles webinar. And today we're going to be talking about communications without borders, reaching a hybrid workforce with an employee app. And we'll kind of delve into that topic in a little bit more detail in a second. But firstly, just to kind of outline kind of how the webinar is going to go today. So we'll start off obviously with some introductions and set the scene for everybody, so you guys can get some context as to who you're listening to here today, the companies that we've got involved, and also the topic and how we think it came up and why we think it's a good conversation to be having, especially at the moment. And then we'll dive into the webinar, obviously content itself. We're going to go through why you might need an employee app when communicating with your workforce, what the various different solutions, what the options are, and we're going to show an example of a solution as well. And then we're also going to go into the considerations that need to be made in order to make sure that you guys are all making the right choice when you're embarking on this journey, because obviously it's a very complex area and there's a few considerations that we wanted to and we think are worth highlighting as part of this topic. So I think, yeah, to get things started, we'll do some quick introductions of the panelists who we've got on the webinar today, and then I'll give an introduction into Content Formula and who we are. So I'll kick things off. My name's Alex. I'm a business development manager at Content Formula. I've been working for Content Formula for 3 years now. I originally started working in support, helping our clients on BAU support processes. And now I help with organizations who are looking for digital workplace solutions and working with the Content Formula team to help recommend and deliver those solutions. So that's it from me. I'll hand over to John.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm John Scott. I'm the head of user experience at Content Formula, so very much involved in early stages of projects, running discovery, exercises and requirements gathering exercises, and then putting together a set of recommendations before handing over to our tech team to implement things. Over to you, Lars.
Yeah, my name's Lars Nielsen. I'm with Live Tiles. I've been here more than 5 years and been involved in, I think more than a 3-digit number of projects over the past 5 years. So I've worked in many different areas of digital workplace and employee apps. Thank you.
Great.
Thanks,
Alex. Guys. Thank you very much. So yeah, I guess in terms of the topic itself today, this is a topic that I've certainly had a lot of conversations with organizations about, and I know John and Lars do as well. And first of all, when we talk about a hybrid workforce, we're obviously talking about a combination of different workers. So those who are kind of office based, who have a desk, have a laptop, some sort of maybe organization login, but then also we're talking about workers who are on the front line, those who are deskless, may not necessarily have an organization login, and have challenges in terms of accessing content that maybe is readily available to office staff. So we're going to be talking about kind of solutions to that problem. Before we get started, John, do you want to move on to the next slide? I'm just going to do a quick introduction to Content Formula. So we are a digital workplace consultancy established in 2005, and we build, design and support digital workplace solutions, and you can see a list of various different kind of solutions that we've worked on. We work on intranets, policy management tools, learning management tools. We do process automation, which is something we're coming across quite a lot lately. And the main thread that goes through all of these different solutions is Microsoft 365. So John, if you want to move on to the next slide, please, if that's okay. So using the tools that Microsoft 365 have to offer us, we can create some really nice solutions that I just mentioned on the previous slide. And we'll use tools such as SharePoint Online. We'll use the Power Platform, which you can see there, which are Power BI, Power Apps, Power Automate, and Power Virtual Agents. And using these tools, we can create really SharePoint or Microsoft native experiences. But another part of obviously services that we deliver is solutions that go beyond what Microsoft have to offer. Microsoft is by no means perfect. There are gaps in the functionality that they have to offer, and so we partner up with organizations such as LiveTiles, who deliver third-party solutions which really integrate into the Microsoft experience. And we've kind of handpicked those third-party solutions and made sure that they kind of really deliver that functionality seamlessly and provide a really nice user experience. So that's something we're going to talk about in some detail today. In terms of services that we offer, we obviously do design and implementation of projects themselves for digital workplace solutions, but we also go on to support and manage those solutions with our clients as well. And it's often that we'll create sort of roadmaps with a lot of our sort of clients and make sure that we're delivering a long-term plan, which might be delivered in phases over a number of years sometimes. So that's something that we quite like to kind of keep going as part of our relationships. John, can you move to the next slide, please? And then lastly, just wanted to put in a little bit of information about our philosophy as an organization. So firstly, we're very research led. So with most clients that we work with, we like to do some sort of research element. If not in our discussions leading up to the recommended solutions, we really understand or want to understand your organization to help recommend the best sort of solution. And the topic we're going to be talking about today is obviously something that goes alongside that sort of philosophy. But obviously we're very business-led rather than technology-led. So we're putting the business at the heart of the solution, not the technology, and then building things around it. We also have a huge focus on quality and usability, so making sure that bugs aren't kind of come across when using the system, that interfaces aren't clunky and are seamless, and that obviously provides that really nice user experience. So that's something that our UX consultants will kind of go through and make sure is applied as part of our kind of projects. And then lastly, we like to keep things native and out of the box, and obviously make sure we're focusing on keeping things within that Microsoft environment. So ensuring that when we're focusing on the delivery of our projects, that they kind of there aren't too many kind of disruptions when that kind of that process is being gone through the user experience. We're making sure you guys are still staying within Microsoft 365 and getting the best out of that experience as well, and configuring things to ensure that it's in line with that with your SharePoint and Teams experience that you've got set up so far. So that's enough from the introduction. I'm going to hand over to John now.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. So we're going to talk now about why you might need an employee app. So there are, if you're a Microsoft 365 customer, typically it's for one of these three reasons. So not all employees have a Microsoft 365 license or access to the platform. So sometimes companies don't license all of their employees, for obvious reasons, really, because typically like frontline workers, for example, wouldn't need to use Microsoft Office. They maybe wouldn't even need email and so on and so forth. So they often won't have a license. So in that case, of course, you might look to an employee app to reach them with communication. Another example or scenario is when an organization has more than one Microsoft 365 tenant, often due to acquisitions or mergers. So you've actually ended up with different environments based on acquiring different companies. And then another one is that field workers might struggle to access and use platforms that exist on mobile devices. So particularly if you're on an older version of SharePoint, for example, or even you're a non-Microsoft 365 customer, your platform might not be very accessible or usable or optimized for mobile, and your field workers struggle with it. So you'd be maybe looking for an employee app. So these are the most common scenarios that we actually come across. But good that you're on this session, because it obviously means that you recognise that actually this is important, and this is kind of echoed as well by Sir Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, talking about employee experience, saying that it should always be a priority, and particularly when you're remote, you need to be engaged with your business and your company and its sense of purpose and mission, and an employee app or reaching employees in all kind of like types of role, remote and non-remote, and frontline and non-frontline, is of course a massive priority for a business. So how does it actually help though? What actually does an employee app do or help to do? Firstly, it helps you be a connected organization. Of course, that means extending that digital workplace to frontline workers, like we've just discussed, deskless employees. Principally will be through personal devices or sometimes company issued mobile devices, and this will allow you to continue support remote working and optimize physical workspaces as well. And then also an employee app helps you to create a human-centered workplace. So prioritizing employees' health and well-being, reflecting in tools and content across the digital workplace, while kind of evolving internal and leadership communications with more emphasis on personalization, targeting, informality, and dialogue. So feedback mechanisms, types of content that promote discussion and that sort of thing, making it feel much more like a conversation that involves everyone. And then lastly, an employee app can help with enabling productivity. So using technology and tools to increase the efficiency and effectiveness of an increasingly dispersed workforce, and move towards a single coherent digital workplace experience. Making sure you still target, it's a single experience, but you still target and tailor to the needs of different employees in different roles, making sure they have a more kind of tailored experience. So these are the things that an employee app can do to help. Let's just go back a little bit and look more at those scenarios that might evolve and how you can enable communications without borders. So a typical sort of organization might have, through mergers and acquisitions, might have acquired multiple Office 365 tenants. They might have IT silos due for security reasons between those tenants and so on. So you've got quite a fragmented organizational structure. Also, you may have the type of your business may be maybe something like a conglomerate, or it's franchise based. So you naturally have these kind of entities that are sort of disconnected from the sort of the overall corporate layer and parent company. And then also you may have as well within your kind of organization these different kind of rings of stakeholders or sets of audiences, like board members, employees, contractors who may be part-time or full-time. You might have suppliers that you work with regularly, and they're kind of part of your network, but at the same time they're different. They're in a different sort of audience, and you've got these different segments of audience that you need to kind of communicate to and involve in your digital workplace. And so you might end up with something looking like this. You've kind of got these different Microsoft tenants or environments where you've got your main brand, your sister brand, the brand you just acquired. You've got your factory contractors, your franchise partners, your consultants, your community, and your frontline workers. So all these different sets of people that you need to reach and communicate effectively with. In some cases, the same information to those people, so everyone's got the same on the same page and is informed on the sort of the wider aspects of the running of the organization. But in some cases, there's more tailored communication that would only go to some of these groups. So and these dots then representing an audience who might actually have a kind of interactions and involvement with these different components or areas within your digital workplace. So they might be involved with one brand and a sister brand and a new brand we just acquired, and also they might be involved with the factory contractors. So there's kind of like a connection. It's like a matrix organization. And then another audience that might be just concerned with the main brand and the franchise partners for that brand. And another audience that would be the brand and the frontline workers, maybe the management team of those frontline workers, for example, and so on. More matrices or matrices. And then you've kind of got additional considerations as well, where you might have some branding differences because we're talking about different brands here under a kind of like parent company. So having the ability to have different branding on different parts of your platform or in your messaging may also be important. So overall, it's can be quite a complex environment, and we need something that is able to kind of permeate all of these different dimensions and segments, and make sure that you can get messages out, and you've got you can communicate effectively your vision and strategy and so on with all these different groups, but in a way where they're receptive to it, and it's in a format that they will actually consume and understand. So yeah, quite a lot to take in there, but there are a few options when it comes to an employee app, of course. So there's quite a few options out in the market, which you may have looked at already. Each of them have their own advantages and disadvantages. Some are focused more on being like a standalone platform, separate from any other, whereas others are designed to integrate with like Microsoft 365, for example. That's usually the main kind of one that where the integration is seeked because it's so dominant. And we're going to show you, or more accurately, Lars is going to show you the one that we chose for our customers, which is LiveTiles Reach. So we actually evaluated different platforms. We chose Reach because of its focus on that seamless integration with Microsoft 365, and because the vast majority of our customers are Microsoft 365 customers, so they use that platform. It is, for us, was a natural choice. Because of that integration, but it also does then have a wide-ranging feature set too. So over to you, Lars, to talk about Reach.
Thank you. Can you take the next slide?
Yes, yeah, of course. Sorry.
Great, thank you. No problem. No problem. Thanks a lot. Thanks, John. Yeah, so this is actually a very good introduction to why you would use an employee app. So maybe if you're okay, John, I'll just give a couple of customer examples. Like
sure.
take Nestle, a conglomerate, 9 different brands, I think 130 subsidiaries, using this solution to support corporate and local content in a really complex structure across boundaries. Foot Locker, the shoe company, retail chain, lots of store workers might not be connected to the organization IT, need to be able to communicate, like the example you gave, John, with store managers. A transportation company, 2,000 people. I'm not allowed to say the name yet. I will when I can. 2/3 of them are truck drivers and warehouse workers with no ID or corporate ID, where they need to communicate. And that app really needs to be where the users. So mobile first, easy to install, easy to activate. If it's got any more complexity than Facebook, then you're in trouble. So this whole idea of mobile first and be really user friendly is important. When you look at this slide, I really like what John did as an introduction to what we can deliver, because it is really the seamless integration and the functionality in combination that enables us to deliver all these solutions I just mentioned to you and many others. And if you look at this slide, what you're seeing in the upper left-hand corner is omnipresent and unified create. What we mean by omnipresent first is that if you look at the circles to the right in the top, we mean that you need to be where the users are. So some users are desk workers, they use Teams as their primary client. Others might use SharePoint, others might use Outlook. Some people might like Viva, some people might not think Viva is personalized enough. Some people only want to use the mobile device, but the users can't figure out how to install Teams on the mobile device. So it depends on where the user is. And our mission is to be where the users are. So I will show you 3 examples of this today. One is how you serve this up inside of a SharePoint client, how you serve it up inside of a Teams client, and how you serve it up on a mobile first device outside of Office 365. So that's what we call omnipresent, and that's the top circle you see up here. There are other systems to integrate to as well. It doesn't have to be browser and mobile app. It could also be an API to like Slack or something similar. So it doesn't have to be just standard clients that you think of as a standard client. Then we have unified create, because as you deploy your content across these many different clients, the lower circle you see at the bottom of this diagram, that's really all about what if we could let all our content creators just create content in an intuitive way, and based on the target audiences and the tags they select, you have a platform that automatically distributes this across all these boundaries. Non-office workers, office workers, wherever they are, this platform just handles all the complexity behind the scenes deploying that. And that's the value we deliver. We enable you and good partners like Content Formula to build really cool digital workplaces, and then we handle all the complexity on the back end to deliver on that vision of being where the users are and have consistent content across those audiences. So a little complex slide, but it actually boils down to the upper left-hand corner: omnipresent and unified create. So if you don't mind, I will now share my screen here, and I'm not as sophisticated, so I just share my entire screen, so bear with me on that. So actually, what I want to show you is a couple of things. First, I want to show you how do I serve up content across different devices and without boundaries. And what you're looking at here is really the core of an employee app. So this is really the way that we deploy an employee app. This requires no office license. Requires no organizational ID. You can invite people using their Gmail or Facebook account, whatever it is. You can manage all that inside of this platform. And of course, I'm going to show it on the desktop, but of course it's a mobile first, designed with a burger menu and everything else. So of course it runs as a mobile first device, supporting the leading mobile platforms. That's a given. So when you look at what's inside of an employee app, before I show you that, let me just actually show you how you can see these news here. Like I have like my security update, etc. If you go and you look at reach here, you'll notice that I have my security update here as well. So this is a component that we insert into Teams that naturally displays and deploy the same content based on the profile of the user. So I'm the same user on my employee app as I am in Teams, and then I see the same content. If you go and you look at SharePoint, you'll notice that this is my SharePoint client, and you'll notice that I have the same content served up here inside of my SharePoint client. If I click on it, it'll open up, and I have all the functionality that I can do on this, embedded videos, etc. And if I go back to my employee app and I click on it, I have all the same functionality. So this is what we mean by I've created a single piece of content that is then displayed intuitively both in Teams and in SharePoint, because I happen to be a desk worker that uses those clients as well. If I were a mobile truck driver or a Foot Locker store worker, I might just use my mobile device to serve up the same content in exactly the same way. So this creates this very, very easy to onboard and adopt user practice. It really makes your digital workplace much more successful because we handle all the technical complexity, and it's the same experience to the users. They don't have to find out what is a Viva card, how does that look? What's a SharePoint page, how does that look? What's a mobile device, how does that look? What's a Teams chat, how does that look? What's a Teams notification? All those complexities that you see, and I'm a big fan of Office 365. Don't get me wrong, I love Office 365, but all those complexities we simply remove for you. So before I go and show you how I create a piece of content, and I'm keeping an eye on the time, John, so don't worry. Before I show you that, let me just walk you through some of the main functions. I've done more than 100 projects. So just some of the main functions that I've seen with all those customers I work with in many different industries. And really, the first thing I showed you was this homepage. So wouldn't it be nice, even for the frontline workers, they had like a very nice and intuitive homepage. Of course, you can't make it as nice as this on the mobile device. So on that, of course, we put it all at the bottom here on the app. So you can see that at the bottom of the app, you can navigate and you can have your burger menu, etc. So of course, all that is done very intuitively on the mobile device. But here you see some of the main things that I see people ask for is it would be nice to have a homepage where you can just see a little bit of corporate news, my personal news, maybe some documents for compliance, handbooks and guidelines, maybe some events, etc. But it would also be nice for those people that are not as savvy. All they want is really a Facebook experience. And what Facebook is, if you think of it, that's just a stream of different content you see. So if you click on this next tab, I have a stream. And what this does, it combines my events, my news, my team posts, etc. It combines all those in a natural dated stream. so I can see everything that's relevant for me. So here you get this digital workplace, Facebook experience, social intranet at its peak completely. So we have this stream function. Then what we have is on this, we have the main thing that I see people always ask for, that's news. So how do you create news? How do you distribute news? We do it in a very intuitive way where we look at channels and tags. So the Microsoft Term Store and channels. I'll show you in a minute how you create a piece of information. But here you can see some of the channels that I'm allowed to subscribe to, because all it's, of course, if you're like a Nestle with 300,000 employees or something like that, you have hundreds if not thousands of channels. So it all has to be personalized, so it's relevant for me. So everything I've shown you is personalized either to me as a person, to the entity I belong to the skill set I have on a tag, or to the organizational ID I'm in, or the location, or whatever it may be we use for personalized targeting. Then if you go further down here, you'll see that I have posts. The idea with posts is that if you're a Foot Locker store and the store managers want to send out news once a week to the store, then you can have a post that goes to a set of users. That's a very quick and dirty, intuitive way to communicate with a group of users. We have, and I'm just gonna not confuse you, but we have something called chat as well down here. I'll come back to the rest of the functions. So post is one-to-many communication intuitively. Chat is like if you are the truck driver company I mentioned, and you're in a warehouse and you don't have the other employees' phone numbers, then you can use chat to look them up without them having an ID, and you can send a message around to other people. So this removes this whole need of understanding mobile phones and chatting, etc., and it makes it a lot easier for your staff to use this day in and day out. I call this a little bit like our old cafeteria menu feature. This is the thing that makes your staff use this app day in and day out, all day long, and therefore, of course, look at the push notifications and everything else we send out there. But then we also have pages. Pages are more static content. It could be employee handbooks and process manuals, but it could also be brochures if you're a sales organization, or it could be a little form where you request time off or something. These pages can contain code, so you can create static pages. Then we have events. These events can, of course, both be online and physical. And physical, you can set maximum number of people, etc., etc. You can set a target audience on it. Of course, everything is personalized, like I mentioned before. And then we have people search, where you can basically search for any person that is in this employee app. So these are some of the main functions that you have in an employee app. And indeed, feel free to ask questions if any of this was unclear to me, unclear to you. So
we have a question, Lars, just around that stream
yes.
section that you've got on the left-hand side. Can these elements be renamed? Because Rory's made a good point that he automatically thought it was Microsoft Stream, for example. Is it possible to rename those those panels on the left-hand side?
Yeah, actually the first two things I showed you are special configurations. So we just show stream. You're right. It would probably be better to. We're just not allowed to call it Facebook. I think it'll sue us. But I agree with you. Knowing Zuckerberg, you got to be careful. So I don't know personally, though. I want to say.
So it can be named
yes,
to yeah.
So if I go here and I look at my news, you can see that I'm an editor because I have this little manage news button. And what that does is it allows me to create content. And when I click on that, I get to my editor's dashboard. I have some draft content, and then I can also create a news article like you see up here. And what's different from standard Office 365 environment is that this is a really controlled, intuitive template that people use. So for example, I can choose to add a banner. I choose from my computer or from an external source or something. In this case, I'm choosing a picture from a conference I was at a while back, and this was actually a Microsoft event. Here, I can put in a title. You can see there's this little eye up here, and that tells me that I haven't filled out everything I need to fill out. So if I click on that, it'll show me what I need to fill out, but I know what I need to fill out. So I say, showing again. Home side. It's actually a real conference picture, and then there's it all. Something funny. So then you'll notice that I have this little configuration tool here. So I can click here, and that allows me to do all the things I talked about earlier, selecting audiences. So for example, if this is for general and HR mainly, I can select those two and I can hit save. I could also do different things. I can do it for somebody else. Like if I'm doing it for my manager, I can set a start date and an end date, so we keep the content current at all times, and you don't have to think about it once you've done that. I then have the ability to insert external sources, but I can also insert all other kinds of widgets like an image, a gallery, a video, documents, quotes, code, etc. So I can insert all kinds of things, but for now, I'm just going to say, check it out. Then I can select keywords, and these keywords are very cool because they're synchronized with the Microsoft Term Store. So talking about how we integrate very closely with Microsoft, this enables me then to have a tag that's actually called London. So I can use that as an additional target information, and then it will be shown to this location as well. I can ask for, how do you like this article, for yes, no, 1 to 5, so etc. I can ask for confirmation. And when I ask for confirmation, I also create a push notification that, of course, that goes out to the users. They have to click on it, they have to confirm they read it, and then you're good to go. And then I can allow or disallow comments and likes. That's always been a very requested feature from us. But in many organizations, when the examples I mentioned to you, they typically operate with multiple languages. So wouldn't it be nice if we could have a language option where we would use some machine translation to help me translate, but I could just fix whatever the machine did wrong and make it look really cool. And to do that, we have this translation option where I can choose what language. You can pre-configure which languages you want to support with machine manual translation. In this case, I choose to translate to German, and I choose to translate it to use the below English version I have as the source. It could also be another version. And I hit save, and then without doing anything, I get a German translation, and I have the ability to fix it, what I don't think looks right, and then I can hit publish, and then I publish this news article. So you saw me in just like a few minutes. It took much longer than I normally take because I had to explain what I was doing. I could probably in 30-45 seconds publish a news item, and now it's distributed to these different clients that we talked about. So now, of course, it will show up on my mobile device. I can show here, it will show up on my news. If I go to my consumer view again, of course, it will show up on my news here where you see it. It'll show up on my mobile device. If I go back to my homepage here and I refresh it in my SharePoint site, you will of course see that it shows up here. It just needs to load.
Lars, just a quick question on
Yeah.
publishing. Are there approvals?
Absolutely, there are. So what you can do is you can either publish it or you can send it for approval, or you can configure it so that you have to send it to somebody for approval first. So that's clearly there. Anybody who wants to see how that works are welcome to reach out to me afterwards. But here now you see that I have this news article that I just published, and I have it in multiple different languages. I can choose different languages. But of course it selects my default language when it loads, and of course I also have it in my Teams client here. So what I showed you was really how do I distribute omnipresent? How do I send the same information to a mobile user outside of your organization, to a MS Teams user, to a SharePoint user? And I did it by creating the content only once, and it is displayed in a consistent way. And we handle all the targeting on the back end. You didn't see me do anything to make sure it showed up in SharePoint or in the mobile app, etc. I just selected some target audiences. So what that does is, just to wrap up, what that does is that enables you to be quite visionary on how you want your entire digital workplace to work. Field workers, frontline workers, contractors, franchise workers, desk workers, Teams people, whoever it is you have, you can configure a very ambitious digital workplace solution, and then all you have to worry about is what are my target audiences? What are the types of people I try to hit? How do I structure that target audience? How do I reach? How do I technically define who is in this audience? And then you work with people like Content Formula, who's best at this, one of my best partners in the world, who is really good at building the pre-planning, stuff around your digital workplace and the post-planning implementation, and then they use platforms like ours to handle all the technical complex stuff in the middle, so that you're successful when you also deliver it. I don't know if that was too confusing, but that was like that was really my short version on what an employee app that is seamlessly integrating to Office 365 is all about.
No, that's great. Thank you very much, Lars. I think we're just going to hand over to John next. But just before we do, if any of the attendees have any questions or anything that you want to ask, whether it's related to the section we're going through currently, or something related to the topic, but more specific to your business, please feel free to post in the chat. We've also got a Q&A section which you can see at the top. And we've got a Q&A section at the end to go through. So if there's any questions, we can obviously go through those. So yeah, John, over to you.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks, Lars. Thanks for that great demo. And you'll see some of the things that Lars pointed out and mentioned in the demo in this next section of the webinar. So basically, you should see my screen now. Yeah, now we're going to look at. We're going to look at the 12. There's quite a long list of areas that you need to kind of consider, to look at, to think about, and I'm going to talk you through these, each of these 12. So let me just go on to the next one here. Oh, no, there we go. So one is content targeting and discovery. So you've got to ask yourself, is it important that you segment communications through audience targeting? And do your users kind of complain if they can't find what's relevant for their job? This is, I mean, I haven't yet come across a company where this isn't a factor. It's typically one of the most common ones. So if you do need to do this, then you need to, if your answer is yes, then you need to look at the following capabilities in the employee app that you choose. And this is basically useful as a kind of like a selection criteria for an app that you might choose, but also once you've chosen an app because you think this does kind of the stuff we need it to do, or it seems right for us. This is also an important kind of exercise to work out, well, yeah, okay, but we're not necessarily going to roll out all features of that app straight away. There are some things we might start with, and this will help you decide which of the features to maybe turn on or to promote initially, as well. So yeah, so in terms of this one, if you say yes to this question, you're going to need to look at an app or a tool that does passive targeting with channels and user groups. So that is to say, you can preset the targeting. The user, the employee, doesn't have to choose anything. You just automatically send them certain things based on groups they're in and locations they're based at and so on. The next one, though, is active targeting through, so the user actually, or the employee actually can choose themselves what they want to see. So they're more active in deciding the information that's relevant to them. And then the last one here, that a multilingual search experience optimization. So if you've got employees where English isn't their first language and they're searching for information, that can often be a huge barrier because the information will be in English and they're searching in a different language. So having the capability to kind of to match language terms and that sort of thing may be important for information findability. And the reason like search as well is like high up here on the agenda is that given like the limitations of mobile as a platform in terms of the UX, search on an employee app often becomes more important than it is on desktop, because you need to be able to just quickly do a search. I don't know if maybe if you've got an iPhone today, you may have found that more recently, rather than swiping through screens for apps, you just start typing. You drag down the search and you start typing because it's just a quicker way to get to the app. And so the same thing applies to the digital workplace on mobile. People will tend to use search more and expect kind of quick results. Yeah, so then that's the first one to think about. The next one is branding and customization. Do you need to spend money to have your vendor like us implement branding, or taxonomy and information architecture changes? Sometimes you might need to do this, and other times you might not. But so if you do need to do things like have custom branding and stuff like that, then you need to make sure that the capability for customized branding is in the app experience. Make sure that you can also change taxonomies that are in place, so tagging systems and things, and make sure that they match your own organizational kind of vocabulary. And also you may want to make sure that you can actually brand the app, rather than it being called the name of the vendor. Can you actually give it its own name so that you can kind of give it its own identity within your company? And then the next, please, by the way, feel free to add questions into the chat as we go as well. I'll try to answer them. Thinking about the mobile experience again, and what we call digital natives, so particularly sort of the younger end of the workforce, they may complain about the mobile experience. They may feel like they need a more consumer level mobile experience. And if you feel this is a big kind of issue based on the feedback you get and the sort of the expectation level, then you need to look at capabilities in the app which include like consumer grade mobile UX, so a very kind of extensively thought out mobile experience, and probably native iOS and Android apps as well, so standalone apps potentially, and also mobile notifications across devices and apps. So can you do push notifications and things like that to mobile devices using the app? Sometimes in the case of, for example, Microsoft 365 customers, you can piggyback on something like Teams as a mobile app and include your employee digital experience within that, and that's fine. That's more and more common actually. We find that customers wanting to standardize, if you like, or simplify their experience for remote workers by having that sort of single push to Teams solution. But in other cases, they feel that actually, well, Teams has got too much in it that isn't really a concern for our frontline workers, and it confuses them to see all that additional functionality. So we just want an app that is dedicated for just the kind of the employee app experience and reaching them with those critical comms and that sort of thing. Then user engagement tools. So if you're an organization with a multilingual workforce, how much time do you spend? Oh, sorry, that's not sure that's the right one. Yeah, sorry, that's the wrong heading there. Apologies. But basically around user engagement tools, social likes and comments, may be important features for you, and also peer-to-peer communication. So like people asking questions of each other, it being lateral communication across the business, and then also user-generated content. Do you want to open up your communication platform to have every employee or larger groups of employees able to communicate on the platform? Do you want people to be able to run polls and surveys and events and chats? And also, do you need the capability to have some content and engagement analytics? So you should be looking for these things in the platform if they're important to you. And then we've got events. So corporate events, how does your organization manage staff events? Can you provide an aggregated view of important dates and events? Is it important to understand who is and isn't attending the event or training in advance for planning purposes? If all of these things, if the answer is yes to all of these or any of these, then you're going to need to look at the capabilities of the app to do things like provide recurring or one-time corporate events, having like one-click registration and cancellation, filtering on and subscribing to town hall and training events and things like that, and running event surveys and polls. And these are things that kind of can't be done particularly well if you're a Microsoft 365 customer without the box tools, particularly the event registration stuff. You kind of have to combine a lot of elements together to do it. So an employee app may be able to sort of fix that for you if you choose the right one, if you choose one with these capabilities. Yeah, so is it, in terms of your workforce out there that may have no corporate digital ID, as in they've got no log on, they've got no even email address in some cases that is a company email address, is it difficult for you to stay connected with them? Do you need to stay connected with them to kind of keep them aligned on regulations, inform them about emergency situations? If the answer to this one is yes, then you may want to look at them being able to authenticate themselves with personal emails via Azure Business to Consumer, or do you want to be able to, you might want to be able to have self-registration login or QR code authentication, and have no need for Microsoft licenses as well. So these are kind of things that may massively help you if you've got this kind of a big swathe of your workforce with no corporate ID, essentially. Then we've got multilingual. So this is the one where you may feel like you need to spend time translating certain content, and maybe this is becoming too much of a burden. You may need a solution that helps you to do that more effectively, and this talks directly to really the thing that Lars showed you in terms of that hybrid capability where you can get part machine translation and then correct issues with it, so you're kind of saving time massively. So yeah, so you're going to look for the following capabilities. You're going to look for a multilingual user interface based on user preference, so the user being able to change the interface of the app to a different language, and there being a language pack available. But also, yeah, curated content in select languages, so yeah, manually curated content, and also like machine translated content. Is that available for all bits of content in the platform? Different platforms may have that capability. And then number 8 is knowledge sharing and compliance. How do you connect people with the expertise and regulations they need? Do you need to have different channels to reach to reach external employees and so on? So if this is a big focus for you, then having a kind of mobile front door or pocket intranet functionality may be important. Having a user experience directory, so kind of like being able to search for people by their skills and experiences and knowledge. It may also be important that you look at if certain content is locked down to certain security groups. That's normally a given that you want that functionality, but not always. And also content update notifications and read confirmation. So do you get a notification that certain groups have seen certain information that is important for them to see, for example? That could be a factor too. Then number 9, making it an inclusive workplace for frontline workers. Do you have do you have a frontline workforce that you need to reach with information and alerts? Typically, you probably do if an employee app is interesting to you. But when you need to kind of reach out to those frontline workers, do you currently have to recreate content for them and deliver it in a different way? If that's a problem, then of course you need to look at the kind of these following capabilities. You need to look at iOS and Android support. You need to look at making sure that the platform supports bring your own device, so it's nice and easy to kind of reach people who are frontline workers, and they may not have company issued devices, or if they have a company issued device, it might be like a shared terminal in the office of a retail store or something like that, which is not conducive to easily reaching those people, because they'll tend to avoid having to log on to that to get messages. So yeah, bring your own device can be important. Single sign-on would often be important as well, and also making sure that you've got easy to use built-in user access and rights management tools, so that you do control effectively which groups of employees get to see what information, because obviously in some cases it'll be like for management only and that sort of thing that needs to be distributed, so you need to make sure you can manage that effectively. Conscious of time, but there's got a 3 left. Digital workplace and Microsoft Teams integration. So how strong has your Microsoft Teams adoption been when there was this big shift to working from home not long ago? And do your people now live in Microsoft Teams? Many companies, they do quite often now. But do you use Microsoft Teams for kind of for comms? Because most companies have either struggled with that or decided it's not really the platform to do that kind of stuff. So yeah, if Teams is a big factor for you, then you need to look at and make sure that you've got you've a native Microsoft Teams app for readers and publishers of comms. You've got push notifications across Teams. You've got the ability to create content in one place and then push it to these different channels, much like Lars showed in the demo, and also that you've got the ability to have multi-tenant external sharing of content from Teams. And then 11, managing security and performance. Are IT resources quite scarce? Are there long project cycles that get postponed, where you're trying to enhance tools for employee communications, but you just seem to go around in circles? then you need to look at some of these capabilities. Really, you need to think about them being more self-sufficient to manage as a comms team or a knowledge management team. So more out of the box, geo-redundant cloud infrastructure, having the ability to enable all Microsoft 365 users quickly, be able to externally review, have externally reviewed security and privacy by design in the app, and also have a private cloud installation, and so that you can be more secure about your data on that platform without having to have IT scrutinize or manage that kind of platform. And then lastly, company mergers and communities. So your company may own multiple companies, and they may have disconnected Microsoft 365 tenants, different Active Directories. How do you get a message across to all these places? If this is a big yes for you, then you need to make sure that you've got integration in terms of the app itself. Can it integrate multiple legal or technical organizational entities? Does it work across multiple Azure ADs? Can you do an invitation or a bulk import of users across these different organizations into the app so that you can reach them all? So yeah, hopefully those things will help. This kind of like these slides will be made available to you afterwards, so you can refer back to these things to think about and ask yourself. But yeah, having said that, any questions then? If we've just got 5 minutes at the end here, we might be able to answer some questions.
Yeah, feel free to post in any questions you might have, attendees. I've got a couple here. What's the I suppose this is probably for both John or Lars. What's the best experience when rolling out an employee app to an organization? How does that kind of experience look optimal, I guess?
Well, I would say it depends, but so in terms of at the end of the day, you want to make that that doorway or entry point into the digital workplace, particularly for an employee who's not a desk-based worker and isn't in it all the time anyway. You need to make that as consumer-like as possible, as simple, straightforward, like single app to go to, single location, a very neat summary of the different content types in there. I think the feed that Lars showed is ideal, where you've got that blended set of comms where it's different communication, whether it's conversations or polls or official corporate announcements in one feed. I think that really helps to begin with when you're rolling something out.
Lars, anything you
I actually have a much more low practical funny thing. I said be where the users are. So some of my customers, they create a QR code where you can download the app. So they post that with a little guide on here's how you onboard on our employee app, and they stick it on the postboard in the warehouse. so when people walk by, they just go there and they install it just like they do with anything else because they're so used to that. And then before you know it, they ask a colleague, what do I need to do again? And then it starts happening. That's what I've seen, and I thought it was actually very cool.
Yeah,
very low tech.
Yeah, and as you say, we're also used to doing that already, so it's quite an easy kind of action to perform, I guess. I've got another one here, which is I guess around it's around analytics. So both using Microsoft 365 or Reach, what kind of analytics can you get on how the employee app is performing, and how does that look as well?
I can start with that, John, if you want. So we bring there are two levels to that actually. The first level is how do we get in-depth analytics if we are an organization with 100,000 employees, and that's all good and dandy. And I forgot to mention, John, thanks for the security slide. We run in the Microsoft Cloud, so if you use Microsoft today, you're in good shape with Reach. It's the same environment, but for some of the comms people and the communications people, they tend to not want to go through a detailed Power BI heavy reporting data warehouse kind of thing. So they just want some user engagement analytics. So we deliver that out of the box in the solution, some straightforward, which articles have been read by how many times, instead of what devices. Oh, that's good stuff we're used to. That comes out of the box. And then you can build a Power BI behind that using your skills as an example. Combining them, it's difficult to combine Office 365 and non-Office 365 analytics without knowing a little bit of the data on how to combine them, simply because Microsoft stores their data in their environment.
Absolutely. And I'm guessing if organizations want to use Power BI as an alternative, maybe they're already using it and it kind of fits in nicely, that is an option for an organization.
The famous "it depends." I don't want to over exaggerate. It depends a bit, but the solution does come with APIs, and we do track certain content, and we are able to give you, because you get your own. We're a multi-tenancy solution, but you get your own environment. There are ways to get access to the data, but it's not like a click and then you got a Power BI report. Not that simple, but there are ways to do it. But I don't want to over exaggerate that it's out of the box. That's just the standard user experience you have.
Absolutely. John, anything you want to add to that?
No, I think it's summarised nicely by Lars there, really. Yeah.
Perfect. All right then. Well, that's pretty much concludes everything we're going to go through today. As John mentioned, we will be kind of distributing these slides, and there's a slide at the end which has got some contact information on. If you have any questions and want to kind of find out more information about LiveTiles Reach or Content Formula services, please feel free to email myself. And yeah, we can certainly kind of pick up any conversations that might be helpful. So thank you very much once again, and thank you, Lars and John.
Thank you very much for having me here. I appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone.
Great. Thanks, guys. Enjoy the rest of your days.
Likewise. Have a good day. Bye.
Cheers.